for the "we're on" sign.
You're on.
All right, I got it. I got it. Good evening, everybody. Today is May 28th. This is the Goffstown Planning Board meeting. It is a regularly scheduled meeting. We have a number of items on our agenda. And before we begin any business, we are operating under Governor's Emergency Order Number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04. The Planning Board is utilizing emergency meeting provisions of RSA 91A to conduct meetings through electronic means while preserving, to the extent feasible, the public's right to notice of such meetings and ability to observe and listen contemporaneously. On the evening of this meeting tonight, you can listen either on the telephone by calling 603-766-5646. When you call in, you enter the participant code 785645. You need to enter the pound sign after the numbers to participate. And if you're having difficulty in calling in, please call 603-660-5000 for assistance. In accordance with the orders relating to electronic meetings, we will need to have everybody participating, identifying themselves. And to that extent, I will be taking a roll call first and then asking for staff members present to identify themselves. Tim,
Tim Redmond.
you're present here at the meeting physically, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. Peter,
Yes, I am here.
and you are,
I am by myself.
and you're participating telephonically, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Jim,
I'm here, but I'm participating telephonically.
thank you. And are you alone? And do you know why we have to say that?
I don't think you do, but I do share this house with my spouse. We got tired of the black flies and can't get bored.
All right, thank you. Phil,
Telephonically, and I'm alone.
Karen,
Telephonically, I'm alone, and I'm not sure if you heard me, but I have to leave at 8:20.
all right, when you leave, either speak up if you're unmuted, or Patty will be able to tell. Quite honestly, it was my expectation that we would be done by 8:20, but we will see,
Perfect.
because that's tempting the gods now that I have said it out loud. Kimberly,
Yes, I am here telephonically and I am alone.
also present with us, David.
Yes, Dave Pierce, an alternate member, here in the room.
And staff, Joanne. Joanne, are you there?
Joanne? She's not muted.
Just press the button.
If she's on her cell phone, she's been having really problems with it. Gail?
Gail LeBrecq, recording secretary and alternate.
Eric?
No, she's on her house phone.
Eric Hutcherson, Goffstown DPW, president in the room.
Is there anybody else present, as to members or staff that I have not had identify themselves?
Patty
Oh,
Gale,
sorry.
staff.
Sorry, the most important person holding the meeting together in the room. Thank you. Patty is present with us here today. All right, we will move on to our business tonight. The first,
Barbara, can you hear me now?
now
Yes.
we can.
Okay, sorry.
And Joanne, who are you?
Oh, sorry. Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
And you're participating telephonically, and are you alone?
I am alone, and yes, I am.
Thank you. All right. The first item we have tonight on our noticed agenda is the minutes of our last meeting, which was May 14th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Phil has moved the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Karen, you've got the second. All right. Is there any discussion on the motion? I will take a roll call vote then, as required by law. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes?
And I vote yes. Thank you. I'm going to go right to our noticed business. And our first item is old business, map 6, lot 43, we have received a written request for this to be continued to June 11th. That was provided to board members in the mailed information in regards to that application, which was a was essentially a site plan application with some special factors. They have asked for a continuance and has said that is in order that they can submit revised plans in advance of the meeting. Is there a motion on the request to continue?
Motion to grant the request to continue to June 11th, 2020.
Is there a,
I'll second.
Peter seconds it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And I have to stop saying seeing no objection because I can't see what most of you are doing. I've got to figure out a new phrase. All right, the first item of new business that we have tonight is in regards to map 5, lot 49-1. This is in regards to 2 lots located on Mast Road. And on this application, we have also received a request for continuance. That written request for continuance was provided to board members in our information. Do I have a motion on the request for continuance?
So moved.
I'll make that.
Go ahead, Peter.
Tim has made the motion, and Peter, I'm gonna take that as a second. This applicant has requested the continuance to June 25th. Is there any further discussion on this?
Does that change? Because we have June 11th in our packet.
It says June 25th in the letter.
No, the 2-lot subdivision is for June
Oh.
11th, and can
Oh,
I
all right.
just make a request as you're announcing? Can you state what the applicant is, like Green Thumb Landscaping and,
Okay.
because people calling in are gonna know by like the car wash.
Okay, this application that we're talking about right now is map 5, lot 49-1. Make sure I'm looking at the right one.
It should be the first one on the first page on your the chair's
Chair's
agenda.
agenda.
I know, but I like to go by what Joanna's mailed us, because that's what everybody's seen.
New business.
This happens to be, I said Mast Road and Route 114. This is in regards to Easy Express Car Wash. The property is owned by various financial corporation, is zoned commercial industrial flex. This property physically is on 114 on the rail trail side of the property across from essentially Wicked Hair Salon and the auto dealers that are next to them. Okay, I have a question. If I go to page 4 of the packet information, Joanne, that you mailed out with the letter from Jason Hill, TF Moran, was it the previous one that was going to June 25th, not June 11th? Did we make the wrong motion on the first one?
No, the first one is the Green Thumb Landscaping, which is a separate project.
And that went to
And then-
June 11th, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. And then under new business, the first 2 items are for the same project, but the first one is for the 2-lot subdivision to create the parcels, and the second one is the site plan.
Different date for the site plan.
Well, in their letter, Barbara, it says they want to do the continuance of the commercial subdivision application to June 11th.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
they can
Thank you
submit
for
revised
straightening
plans.
that out. I'm focused in on the date and was not careful about what I was looking at. So the motion to continue to June 11th is appropriate. This is for map 5, lot 49-1. It has been moved by Tim, seconded by Peter. I will call for the roll. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes, but are we loading up our June 11th agenda by doing that? Or already looking at 4 things? Or are these already showing as upcoming meetings?
Those are these continuances are on that list for June 11th.
Okay, good then.
Okay. Phil?
Yes.
Karen? Kimberly,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And the deadline for June 11th has passed. So, these can go on by virtue of the fact we already have the information. The next item on our agenda is also new business. This is map 5, lot 4911. This is in regards to building a car wash facility on the same parcels that we were just talking about. This property is located on Mass Road and New Hampshire Route 114. The applicant is Easy Express Car Wash. The property is owned by Vera's Financial Corporation. It is zoned CIFZ Commercial Industrial Flex. This portion of it, and thank you everybody for correcting me, is being requested to go to the June 25th meeting. And you can see that on our upcoming meeting list. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Karen moves it. Is there a second? Peter seconds it. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. The next item on our agenda is map 37, lot 13. This is a completeness review, subdivision review hearing for a 2-lot subdivision. It creates one new lot. This is located at 70 North Mass Street. It is zoned residential, small business office district. And this request is to continue to the 11th. There are some issues which the applicant let us know in regards to the street and DPW, and they're requesting more time. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Phil has moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Tim has seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. All right, and I believe that takes us to our first application of the night that we need to have some discussion on. This application for, which is new business, is map 9, lots 95 and 95-1. This is a completeness review, subdivision review hearing for a proposed lot adjustment between 2 lots. The properties are located at 344 and 358 East Dunbarton Road. It is owned by Stephen and Ghislaine, I hope I pronounced that correct, Tibbetts. It is zoned agricultural. We have, where's my phone numbers? We have Bob Kilmer here on behalf of the applicant, here present with us here today. Joanne, is this application complete?
Yes, it is complete, and there is no regional impact.
Are there waivers requested?
There are 2 waivers. One is for the topographic mapping, and the other one is for the wetland delineation. This project was before you recently for an impact for the extension of their driveway. They needed a conditional use permit. They were before the board in March.
All right, so in your opinion, is this application ready for acceptance, subject to the waivers for acceptance purposes only?
Yes.
All right, and there is no regional impact. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept this application as complete and ready for review with no regional impact, and grant the waivers for discussion purposes only.
Is there a second? It's been seconded by Peter. Is there any further discussion on that motion to accept this application? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Thank you, everybody, for going through that. I know this is doing the roll call is difficult, and one of these times I'm gonna change the order up and see what happens that I call it. All right, Joanne, if you could tell us about this, thank you for the history. Where are we with the application today?
So today we have, we have before you two residential lots that are on East Dunbarton Road, adjacent to the Henry Grady Trust property that you saw recently, just to give you a location of the property itself. And they are coming in, for a lot line adjustment. They're relocating the lot lines. If you remember, the driveway that they extended was slightly off onto the other parcel when they came before you for the conditional use permit. At the very beginning of the driveway where it meets up with East Dunbarton Road. So they're adjusting that line so that, and that's considered parcel A, so that driveway will no longer be on someone else's property. And they are actually increasing, one of the lots will be going from 15 acres down to 5.9, and the other lot, which is 2.2, will be increasing to 12 acres.
Okay, thank you. And what kind of comments did we get in regards to this application?
So the comments that I had for the board regarding the property transfers, we just need to receive new corrected deeds prior to the plans being signed so that we can make sure, not prior to the plans being signed, but we need to make sure that these deeds are recorded at the same time that the plan is recorded. We wouldn't be redoing the recording, but we have to make sure that the owner actually follows through with that. And the Conservation Commission reviewed it last night and did not have any comments. They will need a driveway modification permit, and they need to follow the conditions that were placed on them from the prior approval. We need written certification that the bounds have been set. They need to provide a CAD drawing, signatures and stamps, just the usual requirements. And then they need to adjust the lot line to provide 10 feet of separation from the existing driveway to the new lot. Those were comments from DPW. The fire department just submitted comments separately, which you should have in front of you. Just find mine.
On the chair's agenda, they're right under, the fire comments, right under
Oh,
envelope.
okay, they're here. I'm
Yes,
looking
on
for a
the chair's
separate piece.
agenda.
Okay, I'm looking for a separate piece of paper,
Yeah,
but they're
nope,
here.
they're on the chair's
Okay.
agenda.
Here they are.
But that had to do with the driveway issues,
Yeah.
which we knew with the prior issue, when we talked about the driveway, that they were gonna have to deal with the fire department. Okay. All right.
Find them in front of me. So we're recommending that the board review the lot line adjustment and, take input from the public, hear from the applicant, and we've suggested a list of conditions if the board goes forward with approval this evening.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Joanne before we hear from the applicant? I'm not seeing or hearing any, so welcome. And what is the proposal?
Okay, my name is Bob Kilmer from Sanford Surveying and Engineering, representing the Tibbetts on this property. Again, Joanne pretty much covered most everything. Again, they own both parcels. They purchased this one back, I believe, in October. They're looking to downsize in their later years, and so they're cutting this off, holding this, and they're interested in keeping this area here.
Barbara,
Yeah,
this is Karen. It's a little difficult to hear the applicant. I don't know if there's a.
we're gonna move the microphones on the table. Thank you, Karen, for letting us know.
Does that help?
Speak up.
There you go.
Why don't you move the other one too, the one that's to Tim's left.
And I turned up the volume all the way,
All right,
for both her and,
Okay.
Thank you.
So again, they own both parcels at this time. They're looking to downsize, so they purchased this house, selling this parcel here, and they are interested in maintaining this little piece in here. Again, approximately 9 acres to add to their 2-acre lot, 95-1, which is, you call it parcel B, 9.78 acres. Again, while we were doing the waiver request and everything to extend the driveway so he could get to a site to build a barn, it was discovered that the actual granite bound for the 2 corners was physically in the pavement. You can see the bump in the pavement, so it's there. And so initially, they had asked for a waiver. We explained that we were coming in with a lot line adjustment. So our parcel A here, 1,200 square feet, is coming over, taking that property line off the existing driveway. Right at this point, I've moved it over 6 feet, which makes it 2 feet off the pavement and out of the way.
so are you going to have to do a further property line adjustment to meet the DPW issues
Well,
with the driveway?
and that, I have a question for that. You want to deal with that now,
Yeah,
or?
let's do that.
Again, what they stated was basically Appendix A, Road Standards, Section 8C5. That basically says, let me find it here. When you look at 8C, it's general requirements. These requirements apply to all new, upgraded, or relocated driveways. So I'm asking the board to consider that not having to do the 10 feet as this, because we're not actually doing anything to the driveway. We're just
So are you
moving the lot
requesting an
line.
additional waiver
Well,
based
I
on?
can ask for the waiver, but I just, at the point, I'm saying it doesn't pertain because they're talking about
Oh, all right, I see what you're saying. You
changing
don't
in the
need a waiver 'cause
driveway,
it's
which
not-
we're not, physically not.
I guess that will be up to the board to decide. Tim?
So, you're doing a lot line adjustment, you should have considered adjusting the lot line to the 10-foot mark instead of only to the 2-foot mark, in my opinion.
Understandable, and then I didn't, again, see this until the comments, and I just curious as what your input is to apply to all new upgraded or relocated driveways is what I was keen on.
If
How
the-
much-
I was
if-
trying to get it off the,
If the board was to require you to say that the 10 feet applied, given the zoning for the area, would you be able to move the lot line and still
with
have
the 10 feet, I would have to put another angle in here. Because of when I move it the full 10 feet, it makes my corner in violation for this building. So in order to do that, again, maximum I could move it without affecting that with that straight line like we have would be about 8 feet, not the 10.
To keep the setback from the existing building on
From this
parcel A?
existing front building, yes.
Okay.
I-
All right, can you address the waiver request for the topo and the wetlands?
Unfortunately, I can't find that in my packet.
I'll give-
You have a,
Hang on, I'll give you mine.
You got it?
thank you. Okay, so we're asking for a waiver from section 317 topographic mapping and section 3 Number 30, wetlands delineation. Again, both parcels are developed as single-family lots. They meet the minimum area zoning. Again, the configuration of B is such that further improvements would require extensive grading or whatever. This is fairly steep in here. And proximity to Hardy Brook and steep slopes kind of prevents anything to being done. And again, the frontage is a limiting factor. It's not like you're going to be able to get an additional lot without much more work off another property. And again, Hardy Brook basically cuts it off from the other parcel.
Okay. Questions from board members? Comments on the driveway lot line issue? Eric is here.
I'd like, to the chairman, I'd like to hear from Eric on that,
Okay,
on the issue.
Eric.
I mean, it's pretty, it's kind of a.
That's-
Can you hear Eric?
Gotta state his name for the record and all the other business.
Yeah, Eric Gustafson.
Nice, come up to the microphone.
Yeah, why don't you just come up here? You can hear him? Okay. We're gonna move him up to the table where the microphones are.
Eric Gustafson, Goffstown DPW. So this is kind of a standard comment we try and hold all driveway applicants to, regardless of whenever they do driveway modifications. There is a current driveway modification permit up for map 995-1 regarding the previous site plan application to bring it up to reach the barn in the back with NFPA standards. So it was just a simple suggestion of making it conform. The 10-foot offsets typically, so there's no disputes between neighbors, plowing, repaving, driveway maintenance, that type of stuff. So that's why we try and hold people to that as much as possible.
Eric, if I can ask, the new portion of the driveway that we dealt with for the barn, that's the proposed driveway extension that we approved, is that, for people who can't see it, was that in the area of the 10-foot issue or not?
No, that's a separate, on the back side of the lot, near that existing house. There's a barn even further back from the house. The 10-foot off the edge of is right at the edge of the road, coming into the property on the southern side of the lot.
So if this application was not approved, it would be as it currently is and within 10 feet?
Correct, yeah, less than
Okay.
10 feet, yeah.
Okay. Questions from board members?
I have a question.
Peter?
Eric, are we, commenting on this because it doesn't meet the 10 feet and that's it? Is there an issue, if we grant it?
No, it's just strictly, it's a regulation, so, we're just bringing that to the board's attention, to follow. It's just bringing it to the board's attention. I don't know of any disputes, especially where the property owners own both lots, but someday when it's sold off, there could be an issue, who knows?
All right, Tim, did you have your hand up?
So by granting that, we'd be eliminating a potential issue down the road. Would that be accurate?
No.
By not granting it, by having them, adjust the lot line to 10 feet, then you could be avoiding an issue down the road, yes.
Tim?
So, Bob, what's the thought on moving the driveway over then, so that you can move the driveway away from the bound that you propose to place?
Well, again, the driveway's right tight against the edge of the bank there for the brook. You see the retaining wall and the 3x4 culvert that goes across the road. So moving that over kind of isn't prudent, and because of having to keep the width for the fire department for the extended driveway, that's the widest point that we can use. You know, I feel that it would be easier keeping it like that for the fire trucks to come in instead of moving the whole thing.
You're not moving the whole thing, you're moving a portion of the entrance to meet the requirement.
But if I move that side, then I am reducing
The turn radius.
the width for the, required by the NFPA.
Oh, you're not, so you're talking about shrinking the driveway, not adding to the left side of it?
You would need to
Correct.
add and subtract.
Right, adding to the left side would kind of prohibitive because of the retaining walls in there, for the drainage. You see the culvert that the town put in when they redid the road, it's right there. So it was a pretty steep drop into that to move it to the north.
Which is why the suggestion was to move the lot line.
Correct.
I mean, from a DPW standpoint, is that culvert functioning? Would you want anything changed around there?
I mean, it's a new plastic pipe, to my knowledge, it should be functioning fine. It was more of a case of, just getting it up to the standards.
Okay.
If the driveway was shifted over, then yes, like we were just saying, you'd have to add to the north side and subtract from the southern side, and possibly extend that culvert pipe.
Was that retaining wall installed in conjunction with the road work?
Correct. That retaining wall you see is at the end of the pipe.
Right.
It was
So
part of
that's
the road
part
work.
of the basin for the
Yes.
culvert.
Standard head wall.
Okay.
Barbara,
Joanne?
also, if you follow the setback line for the surface water setback, if you were to move the driveway, you may be very close to that, towards
Well-
where it meets up with East Dunbarton Road.
Correct. Again, any work on that section of driveway that's already paved is basically within those setbacks, the buffer.
Other questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments on the waivers that are requested at this time, the topo mapping and the wetlands?
Barbara, I have a question. This is
Karen. Kimberly, go ahead.
I'm just confused why we can't just kick that bottom part of the line out to the south a little bit, just to revise it and meet the standards. I definitely understand why we can't shift the driveway north, but why can't we just shift the lot line a little bit right there at the bottom?
Because the line won't be straight anymore. If you look at the existing building on parcel A, if he kicks it out for the 10 feet to stay away from that building, now you don't have a straight property line. You're gonna have to put a jig in it to move it over and then jig it around, that's a technical term, jig it around the existing building. That's why they don't wanna do it. They wanna keep the property line straight.
Okay.
And again, I just, if I could get, preliminary, conditional approval, making that change,
I mean,
my
he'll
question
do
is-
it if,
my question is, would the board require another meeting to see that, because we are changing the proposed lot line?
but you could do a jig so that you satisfy the DPW 10
I could
feet.
satisfy the DPW, put another angle in
Put another
if it
pin in
was required,
and
yeah.
mark it, and, okay,
We could leave that as administrative condition too.
yeah,
We don't need to come back.
Okay.
Other questions from board members on this application before I open the public hearing? I'm not seeing any, so at this time, I'm gonna open the public hearing for map 9, lots 95 and 95-1. This is a completeness review subdivision hearing for a proposed lot line adjustment between two lots on East Dunbarton Road, and they are owned by Stephen and Ghislaine Tibbetts. Is there anybody online, Patty?
If anyone if
Okay.
anyone wishes to speak for the public comment, please dial *9 and I can recognize you. It will flag you right now. Anyone that's in the public has been muted. Just dial *9.
We have to announce that because we
I
have.
got someone.
Okay.
I have an anonymous caller. You've been unmuted. Just state your name.
Hi, could you state your name? This is Barbara Griffin Chair.
Yeah, Steve Damboy. I have the plot in the rear.
You're-
Map 12, lot 29.
26 Hooksett Road?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I just beeped in just to say I'm here. I have no problem with that. Looks like he's got a problem there. I don't see any problem from my point of view.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Is there any other member of the public who was called into this meeting who would like to make a comment on this application? Got anybody, Patty?
Nope, again, dial star 9 and I can recognize you.
I'm not seeing anybody, so I'm going to close, again, I'm not seeing or hearing anybody. I'm going to close the public hearing at this point in time. Joanne has, I guess I want to hear from board members. I mean, I think this application looks like we have enough information to go forward on the request tonight. And if board members concur, it's been recommended that we first act on the waiver request. I don't think based on the public comment, there's anything else for the applicant to tell us. So we have a waiver request in regards to topographic marking. In order for a waiver request to be granted, hold on, let me get my language. We need to find that a strict application of the regulations would cause practical difficulty, and so a specific plan requirement can be waived when we determine that such a waiver will not affect the purpose and intent of the development regulations. The applicant has submitted in writing the requests for the waivers as required by our plan. The first request is for the waiver on the topographic mapping, and the applicant has addressed that issue. Does anybody have any comments on, or motion in regards to the waiver request for the topo mapping?
Make a motion.
This is Jim.
Go ahead.
Jim, go ahead.
This is, I'm gonna suggest that if we grant the waiver, we condition it on, only the buildings as shown, and that we reserve the right, if there is a, building permit application in the future, to require those. Because we don't know what may go on in back, and we don't have any information on that property. I don't wanna give away that right, but as to what's there now, I support the waiver.
All right, Joanne, let me ask you a question that seems reasonable, that building permits would be subject to a further review. How would Mark know, or how would the building department know that this condition would then exist on this lot?
We would provide him with a copy of the plan and the notice of decision for him to place in the building file.
Okay. Tim?
So I'd like to ask Jim to make the motion with, as he stated it, because he's the only one that can say it the way he says it.
Gail, do you have how Jim said that?
That if they grant the waiver, it's conditioned only on the buildings that are shown now.
Jim, is that a motion
If
on
there's
your effect?
building in the future, then they would have to address it.
Jim, do you make that motion?
I can make it for Jim.
Karen? All right, Karen, you're gonna make that waiver finding,
Sorry,
that's all
I
right.
had it on mute. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's, this is,
Jim, we can second it.
all right.
Okay,
So,
but the motion is that we reserve the right to require and can apply both waivers, so you can fill in the blank if there are any applications or requests for further development on these lots.
well, do you want to make that motion as to both waiver requests then? I think I just asked for it on the topo, but if we're gonna put the same condition on both waivers, I think.
I do.
Okay,
I do, correct. So we can either vote on each separately, but that's conditions going to apply to both. So I'll make a motion that, we find that the granting the waiver will not affect the purposes and intent of the development regulations, will cause practical difficulty, and we grant the waivers subject to the condition that we may require the fill in the blanks and what it is we're waiving on any further development of the lot.
So Jim has made that motion and Karen has seconded it. I take that as to both waiver requests. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Tim?
Yes,
Peter?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes.
Madam Chair.
Tim?
If we could ask the applicant to state for the record how the applicant plans to correct the lot line discussion, so that it's on the record how they're gonna correct that to meet the 10-foot requirement.
Well, I guess what I want to do is I want to hear from board members whether or not they want the lot line adjusted to meet the 10 feet requirement. And I'm seeing some nods in this room, but let me hear from people who are on the phone as to changing the lot line, which will no longer be straight, but they can make it comply with the regulations.
I was nodding yes to the procedure, but I find, this is Dave Pierce, that changing a straight line to have the last 30 feet jog over is an unnecessary change.
Peter, what do you think?
I'm thinking the same thing as David. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. It's not necessary.
All right, well, Jim, what's your opinion?
I think it should be. Good fences make good neighbors. Robert Frost said that, and 10 feet away from driveways also makes good neighbors. So I think we should require it.
Okay, Phil.
I think we should require it.
Karen.
I agree with David and Peter. So I think that what's been presented is good for me.
Kimberly.
I think we should make them shift the lot line. We see lot lines with angles in them all the time. I don't think that having it straight is a good argument for not providing that 10-foot buffer.
I don't think it's particularly necessary. I don't see given how easy this is to do, I would prefer to have our regulations in force. So that means that we would require you to redo that end of the lot line to meet, and the applicant is indicating that they are willing to do that?
Yes.
I guess you assumed for the record that that's what my opinion was.
Oh, I did assume that was.
That's fine.
Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to. Tim, what's your opinion on moving it?
I think we should.
Sorry.
Well, it's just going around the room.
David starting, just sort of threw me off on my list, sorry.
Okay. No problem.
All right, so, any other comments from anybody on this application? There are suggested conditions of approval, which appear to be straightforward and would appear to already anticipate the new lot line as provision number 12, as recommended by Joanne, says adjust proposed lot line to provide 10 feet of separation from existing driveway to new lot line per section 8C5 of the Goffstown Development Reg. So it's already on our list of conditions, and I think the plan can be submitted and administratively reviewed to make sure that's complied with. My personal opinion is that does not need to come back to us.
Let's add, Barbara, that that's satisfactory to the planning director and the Department of Public Works, to confirm who has to review it.
Thank you. And Gail has that change. I need her to lift her head up to make sure she really does. She did.
A motion?
So if there's no further discussion, I will look for a motion on this application. Tim?
I'd like to make a motion to grant the lot line adjustment. Make sure I got it correct. Grant the proposed lot line adjustment between the two lots, map 9, lot 95 and 95-1, with conditions 1 through 12, with 12 being amended with the extra language included at the discussion this evening.
To the satisfaction of the planning director and DPW.
Correct.
Is there a second to Tim's motion?
I'll second it.
Peter has seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the roll. Tim?
Yes?
Peter?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Thank you, everybody. All right, our next application tonight is map 10, lots 12, 12-2, and 13.
Bob, you want this,
Grab the other stuff.
waiver
This is
stuff
a
and
completeness
you can
review
never-
subdivision hearing for a proposed lot line adjustment
I got it right
between
here.
3 lots. The properties are located at 55 and 49 Tenney Road. They are owned by the Neville Family Revocable Trust of 2016, John and Denise Neville trustees, and also by Eric and Emily Seiler, map 10, lot 12-2. This is zoned agricultural. This application also has waivers requested in regards to actually the same provisions of our regs, the topo mapping, section 3C17, and wetlands delineation, 3C30. Joanne, is this application complete?
Yes, it is, and there is no regional impact.
All right, and the waivers that have been requested are similar to the previous application, and is it your recommendation we go forward to consider with those being accepted for discussion purposes only?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to find the application complete? It has no regional impact, and the waivers are accepted granted for acceptance purposes only.
So moved. Jim got it.
Jim moved, Tim seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Tim?
Yes?
Peter?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
I vote yes. Joanne, why don't you tell us about this application?
Okay, so it's similar to what the previous and was asking for. They're just switching around a few of the parcels from, there's 3 lots involved, and lots are owned by the same owner, and the 3rd lot is the separate owner. And they're moving some of the lots around to change the boundary lines. I just wanted to bring to your attention that map 10, lot 13 is a non-conforming, undersized lot, and it will remain non-conforming. However, they are increasing the acreage of that lot by this lot line adjustment.
So arguably, it's becoming less non-conforming.
Correct. We do have comments on this one from the fire department that were received separately. They're in the same memo, email from Patty that you have in front of you. He has 4 comments. One is the revised driveway work must result in a roadway capable of supporting Goffstown Fire Department apparatus. The second is roadway width. The third is overhead clearances. And the fourth is turnaround fire apparatus.
I am not
Are we
seeing
on-
that. Patty, where is that?
That one related to the lot line adjustment previously. He wanted that to follow from the previous approval for the buffer. On this one, his comment is no comment. It's,
Yeah, this one had no comment, I'm sorry. The Conservation Commission reviewed it last night. tonight, and they also had no comment. They do need to provide revised deeds for the changes to the lots themselves, the description. And DPW had a list of comments that begins on page 11 and goes into page 12.
And they were included in the chair's
Yep.
agenda as well.
Joanne confirming that those DPW comments were included in the conditions on the chair's report?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
Trav, I have a question, if I may.
Jim, please speak up.
I just want to confirm, the new deeds, it's the deed for the property that's being transferred. You don't reconvey the whole lot, you just convey the portion that, for which title is changed.
Right, exactly. The new,
It's parcel A or parcel, it's just that part that's changing here, so it doesn't, you don't do a deed to yourself for the whole thing again.
Thank you. And Joanne, that will be satisfactory to the assessor, correct? Because then he can redo the lines.
yeah.
Okay. All right, any questions from board members before we hear from the applicant as to this application and the waivers requested? Seeing none, welcome.
Again, I'm Bob Kilmer from Sanford Surveying and Engineering, representing Eric and Emily Sealer and the Neville Family Revocable Trust. What they're proposing is a lot line adjustment. The Sealers reside at map 10, lot 12-2. Here they have a 30-foot access to Tenney Road on their parcel. Again, the Nevilles own 10-12, which is this piece, goes back behind the Sealer's house and all this. And they also own 10-13 where the residence is. Again, the initial ones, parcel A and parcel B here, parcel A on this side, parcel B right here, is basically an equal area swap for 12-2 and 10-13 of approximately 1,805 square feet. And doing this, again, to give him more room for his driveway, to give the map 10 lot 12-2 more room at the edge of the driveway. And this would be to square up that line because there was a large jog that came down into close to their driveway and home. So they're just trying to square that off and give them more there. Parcel C, at the time we were doing the lot line adjustment, they have a shed here that they use their garden equipment, lawn tractor and all that stuff, and they realized that was over the line. So in wanting to keep that portion with the house, that they use with the house, we're doing parcel C adjustment between lot 12 and lot 13 to incorporate the shed, a small lean-to next to it to meet the setback standards for that. And again, with this, we are showing a 20-foot utility easement for the underground utilities from the pole to the existing barn. There was some of the comments from the DPW I've taken care of on a revised plan that the board does not have yet. Again, we're showing the 75-foot well radiuses on the lots. They wanted a note as far as if this ever changes ownership, that there would be required to do either drive easement and a water line easement, water line feeding the barn, at the time of sale, and also if they chose not to do that, however they were, you know, this was going to separate or whatever, they do have the availability of frontage to be able to create their own driveway here. I believe there used to be one in this area. There was a house, dilapidated house that they tore down at one point. And again, if they chose not to do the water line, they could drill a well on the lot also. The existing drainage system in Tenney Road, again, there's several culverts and associated drain lines between them shown. Again, they're tough to see because they're right along the edge of the pavement. Catch basin there by this driveway. Catch basin here opposite their house, and another one at this driveway with lines connecting. And the next catch basin would be farther down out of sight of this subdivision, or I'm sorry, lot line adjustment. I believe his thing with the show the dug well on 1013, I believe one of these is what he was referring to. That was not on the original submission. And then is number 15, show the slope and drainage easement. Okay, the slope easement as deeded, it's a slope and, again, the deed's written slope easement, and there's no meets bounds description. It's just a, you know, allow them to come in and grade off onto the property. So there's no, you know, nothing to really show it on the plan. The drainage easement that they asked for was 25 feet off the existing center line of Tenney Road. And that's what this line here shows. And again, it was just, at the time, was just for lot 12 when they asked for that. A previous lot line adjustment in the back here.
Okay, I don't mean to be, I am obviously having a hard time tonight, but I was completely confused by a couple of the things you were talking about, because I wasn't sure who was asking who for what. So, and it sounds like you're telling me some of the stuff is there, but just missed. So, if I just go back to the DPW comments and you've got them, and I guess there's a 75-foot well radii. Is that supposed to be?
He's asked them to be on the on for the wells. This well is showed, their well is showed. This one was missing.
So you agree to do that? Is that what, Eric, you're asking for?
Yes, yeah, I believe that based on what everything Bob just said, he has an updated plan that reflects all the.
Showing that
Okay.
we've already
All right,
started to do the
We probably don't want to
revisions.
hear about an updated plan. I
Okay.
want to know whether the plan we're looking at, you are willing to, because I don't care about another plan, we don't have it.
Yes,
So what you're saying is you understand what the 75-foot well radii
Correct.
issue is, and
Correct.
it will be added.
it will be added.
Tim?
Barbara, I've taken all of Eric's comments and added them as conditions of approval.
I understand that, but from his presentation, I was not understanding whether he agreed they needed to be done or not. So that's what I'm trying to clarify. Tim?
That well next to Tenney Road, did you ask for a salt waiver for the contamination? I don't read that anywhere.
I do not believe that was, and that's obviously within 75 feet. So that should also be a condition.
Could you explain, could you state it for the secretary so she could, so Gail could write down?
Yep, so any well that 75-foot well radius overlaps into the town right-of-way, we typically request a well liability waiver, so that protects the town of any salt contamination liabilities.
So there would need to be a 75-foot well radii on the final plan, and the applicant would need to provide a well liability waiver. All right. Add a note to the plan that the existing lots change ownership, a driveway access easement will be required for barn driveway. Are you telling me that that is not necessary?
saying that we'll put that note on. There are other options at the time of sale. If they choose to put a new driveway in on Tenny Road, they won't need to give them the driveway access easement through 1013, is all I'm saying.
So Jim, I'm confused. Why would we put that condition on if,
I question how we could enforce that. We don't monitor changes in ownership.
right? So I understand that there's a current use going on, and if there's a change in ownership, that would be an issue for the change in ownership. And the bigger lot has got plenty of frontage to have access on its own, so I don't see why we would be doing anything in regards to that at this point. Anybody on the board have a comment on that?
I don't think it should be in there, I think it should be removed.
Okay, so 10 is out. All right.
Not just me, don't worry about the rest of them.
All right. And then there is, if we go from a, is there a water line, to show location of the water line from lot 1013 to 1012 to the barn. Is that shown on the plan currently and missed?
It will be put on the plan.
Okay, so you
It's
agree
a
to
revision we will
that.
do, correct.
All right. And show existing drainage system located on Tenny Road on the plan.
And
you
we will show
agree-
that.
You agree to do
Agreed
that.
to do the revision, correct.
Is the existing dug well
Not on this plan.
not on this plan?
Right, there is another well,
In addition to the one we're talking about, at the 75-foot radii?
correct, farther back on the lot, that actually that well is what they're using to serve the barn.
So you're gonna add that to the
We
plan?
will add that, correct.
Okay. Eric, have I missed anything on your list?
No, I think you're all set.
Tim?
Madam Chair, the slope and drainage easement seems to be a little bit vague, number 15, from the applicant's point of view. Easement sounds to me like a piece of land that the town has an easement on. Do we have physical easements for slope and drainage easements, or are they just agreements to grade the road edge?
I believe we have physical.
You have,
I sent
you have the
that.
deeded easement.
Yes.
It's, right, it's in two
Location, everything.
parts.
So you agree to show the slope and, or whatever the drainage easement
I
on the
will,
future
yeah,
plan?
we'll show a line 25 feet off
Okay.
Tenny
as long as
Road
that's
for that. Again, the slope line just kind of, I don't want to say unplottable, it just says that they have the right to go in to regrade, basically.
If it's a note on the plan, at least it's stated
Right,
on the
and
plan.
we will note, show the slope, and we will note that it's a drain and slope easement, note the book and page that it's
And those
recorded
easements
in.
are on the opposite side of the road or on the applicant's side of the road?
They got the easement on, well, it's on the opposite side of the road
Okay.
that the drainage is on.
Okay, I'm just asking
But
which
it's
side.
it's on the Neville property.
Okay, thank you. So it should show, it's shown on the plan.
Other questions from board members? Can you address, for the record, the waiver request, please?
Again, we're requesting a waiver from the regulations, section 3C17, topographic mapping, and 3C30, wetlands delineation of the parcels. Again, lot 13 contains its existing, single-family residence. Lot 12 contains an existing barn, and we're not proposing any changes at this point. Again, lot 12-2, also existing single-family residence with septic and well. No proposed changes per se, except for the lot line. Again, the areas of the adjustments are, not near any wetlands that would be on the site.
Where would the wetlands be?
There are wetlands running back in here that weren't mapped. Those are basically the only spots that we've seen with our field work
When you
that
say,
could be considered.
when you say back in here, are you referring to the the rear of the lots, map 10
We're
lots?
saying at the rear of 12-2, lot 12-2, and there is some that kind of cuts across, not completely across lot 12. There's this area in here. And again, any development of lot 12, since it is a large lot, depending on whatever someone does in that, would be required at the time of that. So we're asking for, waivers at this point, because it's all existing. We're not changing the use of any of the properties, not expanding the use of any.
Okay. Questions from board members? Tim?
Open the public hearing.
No, I know. I just want to make sure, based on the waiver presentation, I don't have any questions for board members before I open the public hearing. All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any further questions or comments from board members, so at this time, I am going to open the public hearing. This is map 10, lots 12, 12-2, and 13. This is a completeness review, subdivision review hearing for a proposed lot line adjustment between 3 lots. The properties are located at 55 and 49 Tenney Road. They are owned by the Neville Family Revocable Trust of 2016, John and Denise Neville trustees. That's as to map 10, lots 12 and 13, and Eric and Emily Seeler, map 10, lot 12-2. These lots are zoned agricultural. Is there any member of the public here that would like to speak as to this, Patty? If you could give the magic code for dialing in.
We only have one of the property owners now on the line, and I already have unmuted him, so if he wishes to speak, he's unmuted.
Sir, Mr. Seeler?
This is Eric Seiler from
Seiler.
49 County Road, and I would just say thank you very much for doing this review, and everything seems in order.
Okay, thank you. You show anybody else online, Patty?
No, the other 2 hung up.
All right. All right, seeing no other public, I am going to close the public hearing at this time. Board members, are there further issues or concerns to discuss with the applicant, or do you think that this application is ready to move on for approval? If you do, the first thing to do would be to act on the 2 waiver requests. Would somebody like to make a motion on the waiver requests that looks substantially similar to the waiver requests granting that we did for the previous application?
Barbara, this is Jim. I make a motion for both waivers that is substantially the same as we did last time. Leave it to Gail's poetic skills to change the names.
Thank Karen has seconded that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. The waivers have been granted. We have suggestion conditions of approval from our planning department if the board so chose. In discussion with the applicant, we have determined that adding a note in regards to changes of ownership and driveway access is not necessary. The applicant has agreed in regards to showing locations of things that are there, and the applicant has agreed to show a 75-foot well radii on the plan and provide the liability waiver. They've also, they've agreed to everything else. Is there a motion on the plan?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve, and with the conditions 1 through 9 and 11 through the end of it, and the addition of a requirement of a municipal liability waiver for the well.
So 1 through 9 and 11 through 15.
Plus the additional municipal liability.
Liability,
waiver.
yeah.
I don't see that, right? Yeah.
Right. All right.
That's referred to colloquially.
Jim has moved that, Phil has seconded. Is there any further discussion from board members? Seeing none, I'm going to call the roll. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah.
Phil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, board members, other business. Joanne? In regards to the site plan revocation that occurred at our last meeting, do you know what steps, and I apologize to board members, I did not think to ask Joanne about this. Do you have any information on what's happened since that revocation vote we took?
Yes, so we have, prepared the paperwork, and I sent it over to the police department to ask them if they could call the appropriate department, in Maine to have the papers hand delivered. Because the last few, certified mailings that we've sent to that address have not been accepted. So I'm waiting to hear back from the police chief.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Tim?
Also, Joanne, have we heard from East Point Rentals yet with the landscaping plan to be replaced where they cut the trees down?
Yes, I've had discussions with them, and they're working on it. I don't know if I said this before, but the minutes said that they had until springtime to provide a new landscaping plan, so we're headed in towards the end of spring now, obviously.
The summer solstice is approaching.
Right, but it's still a few weeks away, so I'll touch base with them again, but I know they said they were working on it.
All right, but that has been ongoing, that discussion has been ongoing for a couple of months. So we need to have some sort of, if we don't have something for the next meeting, we probably need to have some idea of when a date as to when you're gonna see something. Tim?
I want to ask also about when we do the application for the veterinary hospital down in Pinardville, like, what is that called? Goffstown Animal Hospital? What do they call it?
Yeah.
Goffstown Animal
Yeah,
Hospital.
we approved an expansion of their parking, am I correct, at that time? And would that include actual changes to the property, including expansion of the building? Or was that not our purview to look at that?
There were two separate applications a year apart. One was for an extension to the building itself, and the other one was for the parking lot. But the owner decided to take the construction under at one time.
Well, thank you for that update. I've been refreshing my memory.
All right. The next item is the CIP membership requiring an amendment to the CIP handbook. Who is best prepared to address this issue? Orally, rather than read it out. What are we trying to do here with this amendment? Somebody tell me.
At the last meeting, there was a discussion that started with Jim concerning the restriction on the CIP committee. It basically says that you can only have one planning board member, and Jim had suggested that perhaps the board may want to change that restriction since it is a subcommittee of the planning board and other planning board members may be interested. Tim expressed an interest, but if he were to serve under these rules, he would not be a voting member.
So is the change proposed at addition of the language saying no more than 2 members of the CIP committee may be members of a single government body?
I'm not sure if you wanted to change that section or to add another sentence to allow and say something like, give an exception to the planning board members that there could be more than one.
Board members, anybody have any input on this?
Are we going to stop at 2? Or next year it's going to be 3?
David sort of asked, are we gonna set a term or not? And for those of you who are looking at the CIP, we're looking at page 6. Tim?
Well, Jim suggested that the vice chair be permitted to vote. So, the section shows the planning board serves as CIP committee chair. Maybe it should also state that a vice chair is allowed to vote. So that we do have a chair and a vice chair, no matter who they are, they have the authority to vote at a CIP meeting. And I think that was Jim's, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was Jim's goal.
Jim, why don't you tell us what your goal is?
Well, that's a great idea, I didn't think of that. The whole point of that is, if planning board members are gonna attend these meetings, they should vote. And I don't know, I understand David's concern about inflation, but I don't know why we should limit in advance the number of planning board members we want to put on this committee. Let me give you, for instance, we can't find enough members at large. Gail, in fact, wears multiple hats, and that's one of them. But then we'd have a very thinly populated committee, but you can imagine that with the eagerness with which our planning board members volunteer for things, let's say 3 of them volunteered to do it. Why would we want to exclude them by formal rules? Why don't we make it 1 or more, then each year we can decide based on how many bodies we need to have a representative committee. Why limit ourselves with rules when it's our committee?
Can I ask a question?
Bill?
At what point, though, there's gonna be a certain point when you have a certain amount of planning board members on there that it technically isn't gonna be a subcommittee, it's gonna be the planning board?
No, so separately, and makes a recommendation to the planning board. So it has, all the committee does, I mean, meaning it, but it makes a recommendation to the full planning board, which then adopts the plan. It doesn't have independent authority to adopt a plan.
Karen, I hear you, you're next.
Yeah, I was gonna say, couldn't you say no more than X number of planning board members? As opposed to
Why?
like, well, I'm just trying to address some concerns.
Okay,
Well, if I can,
let them,
I can give you a good reason why.
Peter,
So if you had numerous members on the planning board, on the CIP committee, and let's say you wanted to, planning board wanted to do a master plan, and put those monies into CIP, wouldn't that be, wouldn't you have control of that by the number of votes if you had too many people on it? And it could be not just, a master plan, it could be anything if you had somebody that was a group of people that were biased for one particular project and have that put on CIP. And I think that's the reason why we have one person from all the different committees, from the different parts of the town, budget committee, board of selectmen, school board, planning board, to make sure that nothing like that happens.
Tim,
So,
Tim's had his hand up for a bit,
Yep.
Tim.
So, I'm siding in with Peter because ultimately the planning board members vote to accept the recommendation of the capital improvement committee. I think we should be careful in how many voting members of the planning board we have on the committee to come back to the planning board to vote to accept the recommendations. I think there should be a limited number of planning board members on the committee.
Bill?
yeah, well, see, that was exactly where my point, why I brought that up. My concern is that if you have a quorum of planning board members on CIP, what is that perception? I mean, because it's a planning process, and if you have a planning process that looks like it's tainted because of that, and as it goes through the process, then other committees, as it goes through, it's gotta go to the Board of Selectmen, it's gotta go to the, Budget Committee. As it goes through the process, it just looks like, it just doesn't look.
Okay, Jim?
Do I care a whole lot? No, I don't. But we are a committee that's charged with planning. That's our job. So to the extent we can create a committee that assists with that planning, I don't know why we wouldn't. But again, I don't really care. I think if somebody, wait, let me finish. If somebody is going to attend as the alternate and attend all the meetings, that person should be allowed to vote, because you want that person to have an incentive to attend all the meetings. And I found when I was an alternate, I attended most of the meetings, not all, but in the end, I couldn't vote, even though some of the other members from these other committees attended fewer meetings than I did, they did vote. I thought that was ludicrous. So at least have the other board members vote, And then how you wanna add that, it's up to you. I'm not saying basically volunteering to be on the committee, so it's probably an academic discussion.
Well,
actually,
The
I mean,
one
I
other
don't,
person.
I don't,
Okay,
I
Karen.
don't think you necessarily.
Okay,
is.
Karen, I recognize you now. Karen.
Thank you. Sorry, so I was gonna say that, you know, I have an interest in attending the meetings, but I also, being the, you know, the greenest and newest member of the planning board, you know, don't necessarily feel comfortable being the chair of the committee, right? And that's the role of the planning board. So, I mean, I understand what Jim is saying, and I understand the need to limit, but, you know, also, I would like to attend, it's just that I wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable chairing the committee.
Well, Jim has already been elected the chair.
Jim's already doing it, so,
Yeah, I know.
I'm not-
No, what I'm just saying, like, I would like to go and attend, but at the same time, like, does my attendance really matter other than just, you know, sitting in and learning about the issue, you know?
right, and go ahead, Jim.
Well, I'm gonna suggest as a compromise, you say no more than 3 planning board members. And then each year we can decide if we want to start to fill those 3 slots. I could see some years when we might, but in a normal year, probably don't.
You're saying 3, Jim?
Sure, just pick a number. If you
Well,
said
why
big
not
quorum.
2? Chair and the vice, why not 2, the chair and the vice chair? I would go along with that. But just adding another member, just to have another member, I'm not really sure. If somebody wants to learn something, they just have to, they can watch it on TV, they can go to a meeting, they can get all the information. If it's there just to learn, that's fine. But I don't think loading the board up, which is what that would be doing. I know you may not agree with me, but, you're still putting the, more votes on one particular group of people than you are on the rest. You know, there's only one selectman, there's only one school board member, there's only one budget committee member. I don't know why we would make, okay, so now we're gonna put 3 planning board members. I disagree with that. I can understand 2 because you wanna have a chair and a vice chair. Okay, I could buy that, but I wouldn't go with 3.
David, I'm recognizing David, the alternate who comes to every meeting, and I will note that since we have begun doing these telephonically, our attendance is stellar. So he has not been able to vote on anything in more than a few meetings. David?
If there were one additional planning board member, that means that we could only appoint 2 at-large members in order to have an odd committee. If there was 3 planning board members, that would be 6 according to the list, and we could only appoint 1 community member. We're diminishing the effectiveness of the community at-large members, which is not a good thing to do.
I'm not hearing a huge consensus for changing anything here. Would that be a fair summary?
Well, if people say 2, that's fine. It's 1 more than we got now.
Yeah, but I guess there's nothing prohibiting one of the 3 at large being a planning board member. It says no more than 2 members of,
Thinking that too.
there are no more than 2 members of the CIP committee may be members of a single government body. So if you have the chair a planning board member and one of the members at large a planning board member, you've got it.
But isn't there a presumption that the vice chair is also gonna be a member of the planning board? If not, we can have Tim be on as a member at large, just coincidentally appoint as vice chair, but I think this planning board should appoint the vice chair, not the committee itself. But I don't care.
Tim?
Traditionally, Jim, we have elected, or by consensus, done vice chair at the first committee meeting of the CIP. Is that how you've been doing it?
I don't think we got there last year.
Patty, I'm gonna recognize Patty. She's our CIP guru.
I don't have the handbook in front of me to look at it, I don't know, so the changes that occurred later, but the chairman wasn't always a planning board member.
That's
or
right.
vice. Earl Carroll used to chair for years, and he was a member at large, and he was the chairman. Also Fred Plett used to, and he was a member at large.
Right.
He was not a planning board person then,
No,
so.
but I withdraw my request. I really don't care now. It's just a
All right,
suggestion.
okay, so
You know,
it was a good discussion and just in regards to the importance of the committee and having people there. Tim?
So, I just want to clear up the two planning, it says here, no more than 2 members of the CIP may be members of a single government body. So, if one, I've already said I would be vice chair, does that mean if I go to a meeting, I can't vote? What are we saying here? I was appointed vice chair at the last meeting.
All right, the vice chair is just sort of somebody who steps in when the chair is not there.
Well, no,
So
that's-
are
that's-
you there as an at-large member or as an additional member to the 7?
No, because when Jim was the vice chair with me, Jim used to attend the meetings all the time, so that you are aware of what's going on when you have to step in as the vice chair. You shouldn't just go in there and not know what's going on. So I intended to go to meetings this year as Jim's vice chair and stay abreast of the situation and what was going on, so that if he couldn't be there, I would fill in for him.
So you are there as, theoretically, if everybody is in attendance at this meeting, you are there in the room as an 8th person. Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know, I didn't do any head counts, because I haven't been there yet this year.
Well, if you're,
Barbara?
Karen,
Sorry, no, I have to leave to get a hop on another conference call.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that aware.
yep,
Right?
thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Joanne?
But the other paragraph says, no more than 2 members of the CIP committee may be members of a single government body. And Gail is also on the CIP, so that brings you to 3 members.
All right, here is my question. Is Tim an appointed member of the CIP 7, or is Tim, as a vice chair, only there right now, only there in a voting capacity when Jim is not there?
Latta.
Yes.
So it sounds like Tim is just there as vice chair to step in if Jim is not there, and he's coming to stay on top of what's going on. And Jim's point was, if my vice chair is coming to these meetings, he should be voting. And it sounds like what we've done is, with our change to make the planning board member serve as CIP committee chair, we have sort of created a problem by designating who is chair and vice chair at the planning board level rather than at the CIP committee level. That's what's happened here. So, I would, so we need to decide, because CIP is meeting when?
June 4th.
Which is before our next meeting. So I think what we've done as a planning board is sort of created another position. That,
No, that's the problem, Barbara. The problem is now you have 3 planning board members on there.
I'm not saying that we haven't created the problem. I think that the question is whether or not we were acting appropriately when we created a vice chair position without looking at the CIP handbook and the positions and trying to figure out what that meant. Because to vote, we are now, as David pointed out, making 2 members of the committee, and now the 3 at large. Would Gail be a 3rd member of the planning board, or is she not, since she's an alternate to the planning board and not a regular member? Patty?
I think when it originally started, it was so you had an alternate to fill in when the
Right.
chairman wasn't there, and that's
Right.
how it started.
Let me
Like the
show up.
school board has an alternate. I don't create a book or anything for them, but if one can't come, they have someone that fills in their spot. Same as the selectmen have an alternate.
Right.
So I think that's how it started, was that,
Somebody would say, I can't go to the meeting, I need you to go to chair
they
for
couldn't
me."
commit to going all the time, so that's how it started.
Tim?
So I think we need to rescind last week's vote as vice chair and create it as an alternate position for the chair when you can't be there.
Jim, are you following that?
But you'd still attend if you want.
But we need to clean up the mess.
Right. You okay with that, Tim?
No.
I just, Tim, I said Tim, not Jim. All right, Jim.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. We have to change Tim's name to Russ.
It's hard on the phone, it's not clear.
I know you've been here longer, so I'll have to change my name.
Well, I don't have anything more to say. I said it, and people don't agree. Oh, well, I can deal with that.
Okay.
Barbara, is this something that maybe we should do later so they can move on with what, the way it is now?
Well, the issue is, I think,
Get ready for next year, I mean.
I have a,
kind of the last
I have a
minute.
statement, Barbara.
Tim,
I will not accept the position as vice chair. That ends it. So we have two now. We have Gail and Jim. That's the end of it.
okay. All right, let me think a little more on it, Jim. I understand what your issue was, and I think that's part of your agreeing to chair it, so I realize that we have an underlying problem here. But since the committee is already meeting, and I think I just figured out what the issue was, maybe we need to address the composition of the committee in total in regards to who's on it.
I don't mind stepping back so that Tim can be on.
No, I think you should just keep going. You've been in it long as I almost did it, so you're fine. I can just go as an at-large member if I want to show up. We'll see.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on from this for right now. I understand Jim's request. Tim is declining the vice chair position, and if Jim can't attend a meeting,
I will fill in.
Tim will fill in. All right. We had a letter from New Hampshire DOT regarding the Gorham Brook that requires no action. I do have an item that I would like to bring before the board.
Barbara, I have a question on that, though.
Bill,
Where exactly is Gorham Brook?
it's the one out by Parker Station that I think goes by the Blueberry Farm.
Yeah, okay, all right, I just wanna, I know where Gorham Pond is, and I kind of figured that, but I just wanted.
It was a question of Eric before we officially started the meeting, which is the only reason I was able to answer that question so clearly. But that's where it is. It's a pretty big open culvert that they're gonna be working on.
Okay.
And Conservation apparently had no comments on it.
If you read the letter from DOT, they want to pour concrete in the bottom of an existing culvert to repair it.
Right.
I heard somebody speak up.
This is Kimberly.
Yep.
Yes, Kimberly. I do have a comment on this, and I, in my real-life consulting role, I send these letters on behalf of DOT to people, and I would just like to make a comment that we would continue to not have a preset list of wetland mitigation projects, because I very strongly believe that paying into the Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund is the best way to mitigate for these projects, and it's easier path forward for everyone involved, and local mitigation projects can so often fail and become a big headache to handle. So that's the process really that they're asking for. They're saying, do you have mitigation projects that you are ready to bring forward to DOT? And if not, we're going to pay the ARMS fund as the mitigation. And as a community, we've consistently said no to this, and we haven't developed that list, and I'd like to just continue supporting that.
Okay, thank you. I understand the letter a little better more now.
Okay.
Okay. The thing that I would like to bring up to the board is on June 11th, you will see a map 3, lot 41, St. Anselm College Emergency Housing Site Plan. St. Anselm's is planning on bringing students back in mid-August. However, when they bring them back, they have decided that they need to do different housing in light of COVID, which in and of itself makes a requirement for more housing. So St. Anselm's wants to put emergency temporary as in for a few years, housing on the site, and it will be not in view of 114, and it will be behind the building. The issue is that it came into the planning board this week because of how things got decided at St. Anselm's, and if they were to go forward with this project, this will be prefab manufactured housing that is put on site, and they needed to be in before this board on June 11th for their approval of this request in order to go forward with the purchase, which will be a fairly significant expenditure for them. St. A's probably biggest expenditure is to the town of Goffstown. They are our biggest taxpayer. The issue with that is the deadline for the June 11th meeting was Friday, and they missed it. Now, our deadline is set in accordance with 676-4 procedures, where applications need to be filed at least 21 days prior to the meeting at such other date as we have set, and that would have been last Friday. So they missed that deadline. Some board members might recall that St. A's has in the past built temporary student housing when they had a student enrollment crunch some years ago, and I hesitate, Joanne, when do we think that was?
1996.
1996, when they were building what is the white, what I refer to as the clapboard or the white dorms that are between the main college campus and the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. When they were building those, they had the need for housing then, and they actually put up and came in and got a plan approved and put in temporary student dorms. And it's my understanding they went in the area that these dorms are proposed to go in or close to. They have a couple of fields back there. At the time, the students actually liked the temporary dorms better than what they were getting in the current housing. The students in the temporary dorms sort of were lucked out as far as the campus was concerned. And St. A's indeed took down the buildings when the permanent buildings, the white clapboard ones, were finished. So their proposal is to essentially do that again. These buildings, I believe, are gonna be up longer than those were, but that was their request. That request was given to me, and I requested that it be placed on the agenda for June 11th for our consideration. Because I'm doing that keeping in mind that one of the reasons we have the deadline when it is for applicants is so as staff can put together the abutters list, get the notices together, and get everything out by tomorrow in time for the deadlines in regards to our June 11th meeting. St. A's, through their applicant, had agreed to help out with that and has actually, in anticipation of being able to come here on June 11th, done the abutters list and submitted the things. Patty has told me that they are indeed delivered and on her desk upstairs, and she would be able to put them together tomorrow like she would for normal applications that came in on time. The issue is, in my opinion, I would like the board to waive the deadline for this application so that it can be heard on June 11th because of the COVID issue. This is purely because of the COVID issue. And it turns out that there is an emergency order, Section 18 of Executive Order 2020-04, paragraph 5, municipal or local government bodies are relieved from complying with statutory or local deadlines set forth, and I'm sort of skimming, for taking actions on applications and requests, including deadlines for accepting, hearing, and acting on planning board applications under 676:4. And 676:4 is the provision that gives us the right to set these deadlines. I would prefer that the board takes, I don't know how we would actually do the motion, but if St. Anselm's is coming in front of us on June 11th so they can go forward on this, they know that we would have to approve whatever plan we're gonna see in order for them to make the expenditure to put up this temporary housing that is necessary only due to COVID.
Barbara, I'd like to make a motion.
Peter,
I'd like to make a motion to waive the submittal deadline to St. Anselm's College for their emergency housing project due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the application would be heard on 6/11.
Yeah, I'll second that.
thank you.
This is Jim. I suggest that you amend the motion to refer specifically to the governor's emergency order, because otherwise we don't have authority to waive a statutory deadline. But that does give us the authority, so it should be part of the motion.
Peter and Phil, do you agree to that amendment to your motion?
I agree, that's needed.
Yeah, go right ahead, that's fine.
All right, I'll make sure Gail has the right section and executive order and paragraph number. All right, do any of you have any comments on that, Tim?
So, did I hear you say that when they come in on the 11th with this application to be heard, we have to be able to act on it on the night of the 11th?
I don't know that. I'm assuming they're gonna want some sort of action. We'll see what happens, but they wanted to get in here because they need to make decisions on purchasing by, I think they said the 14th, but I didn't talk to them directly.
I just want to make sure there's no
The only.
statement that we are going to approve it.
No,
at
this
the
was only for them to get on the agenda for
Okay,
that
thank
night, and they've dealt with us, long enough. Who's handling this for them, Joanne?
Jeff Cavan.
Jeff Cavan has been in front of us enough to know that
Times.
we're subject to do anything.
And I think he came.
Phil,
with
you're
the-
recognized.
Barbara, I think he came with the presentation for that temporary housing that went up, it was behind the coffee shop on the
Yeah,
right.
I think it was him who did it. That's my
Yeah.
recollection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Okay.
May
All
I
right.
may I make a suggestion,
Peter,
Barbara?
go ahead.
I make the suggestion that if we can get any of the paperwork to us in the meantime, before that, and if we have any questions or comments, that we can get it to them so they have the answers that night. Is that possible, that we get the information to Joanne or and try to get the information so they're ready? If they need to have that approval that night, I would just like to be able to do it as quickly as possible. If there's questions, we need to find out now.
All right, well, Patty's sort of nodding her head. You're gonna get information in your packet, and if you've got questions, send an email to Patty and Joanne, and they can forward it on to the applicant. We pass conditions back and forth to applicants at meetings all the time, so
Yeah, they're submitting plans tomorrow.
they're submitting plans tomorrow, Patty says. Jim?
If we submit those comments to Patty, we should be sure not to copy planning board members, because then you've turned it into a meeting.
Right.
That violates the 91A original, so don't copy the rest of us, and do not do reply to all.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this?
Would you,
No, we need to
We
vote
better
on the
vote on it
motion,
first.
and Dave,
right.
and Dave, you can vote, Dave will be voting on this. He's been present for the discussion, and Karen is no longer present.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna call the vote. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
So I want to talk about CIP some more, but yeah.
Phil?
Yes.
That's because you're home in your pajamas already having a drink or something. We're here. David?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
I vote yes. All right, thank you very much, everybody, for accommodating that. I'm happy that we're able to accommodate somebody in this regards, and they've had a history with us that I think they'll get us what we need. I'm not aware of any other business.
Motion
But-
to adjourn.
Thank you,
Second.
Phil. It's been moved and seconded by Tim. I will call the roll. Tim?
Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.